For our next story, we shift focus to Sudan. After almost 2 years of a devastating civil war, Sudan is possibly heading toward a Libya-style split. Warring factions in the North African country, that is the Sudanese army headed by Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and the paramilitary chief Mohammed Hamdan Dagalo, have announced parallel governments. A coalition of Sudanese political bodies will sign the founding charter of a new peace and unity government allied with the paramilitary RSF in Nairobi. This alliance includes a faction of the opposition National Umma Party, several armed groups, and former members of the nation's civilian government. Now, Sudan's army chief, Al-Burhan, has rejected the possible formation of a rival government, criticizing the United Nations and a recent meeting by the African Union, which was hosted by former Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok. The Sudanese army chief said any attempt to impose a solution from outside the country will not be accepted.
Outside solutions won't be forced on Sudanese people. I'm sending a message to the African Union and the United Nations. The Sudanese people won't accept imposing any government, and they won't accept having Hamdok or any other person. Those who want to rule Sudan should come and fight with the Sudanese people. The preference goes to those fighting now, those who can rule Sudan and protect it. They have the priority. Those traitors of the outside forces and speak in the name of the Sudanese people, they cannot come, and they won't come. They don't dare dreaming of ruling this Sudanese state.
The paramilitary's announcement of a parallel government comes after the Sudan army chief said that he is preparing to unveil a new democratic political bloc to govern the country. But reports say this is expected to happen only after the capture of Khartoum is completed. The Sudanese army had long been on the back foot in its fight with the paramilitary, but in recent weeks it has gained ground in Khartoum and has closed in on this symbolic presidential palace along the Nile. In the latest, the Sudanese army continued with its advance in Khartoum's Bahiri city, seizing control of several neighborhoods. With this, the army is moving closer to fully controlling Bahri and the East Nile area. Now, the army reportedly dismantled the RSF checkpoints leading to downtown Khartoum. Sudan's conflict erupted in April of 2023, when the two sides failed to agree on a power-sharing deal. The deal would have led to democratic elections in the aftermath of a military coup that the two sides jointly carried out in 2021. Since then, the fighting has left a devastating impact on Sudan. At least 150,000 people have been killed, and over 12 million have been forced to flee their homes. Sudan is facing the world's worst hunger catastrophe ever. At a time when aid budgets around the world are under increasing strain, partly due to a pause in funding by US President Donald Trump, the United Nations has $6 billion this year from donors for Sudan.
We're here today to launch two plans. Together, they request $6 billion to support close to 21 million people in Sudan and up to 5 million others, primarily refugees, in neighboring countries. And as I said at the start, we recognize that this is a staggering amount of money, the largest UN-coordinated appeal in Sudan's history. It would be a staggering amount to try to raise in normal times, let alone in the midst of the financial squeeze that we're experiencing. But a tough funding crisis doesn't mean that crises in places like Sudan disappear. And I refuse to believe that behind these challenges, we collectively have lost our ability to reach out and support those in direst need.
The UN says the funds are necessary as the fighting has already displaced a fifth of Sudan's population and stoked severe hunger among half of its people, which is set to worsen further. Famine conditions have been reported in at least 5 locations in Sudan.
Because this is a humanitarian crisis that is truly unprecedented in its scale and gravity. and it demands a response unprecedented in scale and intent. It's a crisis that is increasingly crossing Sudan's borders, threatening to destabilize neighbors in ways that risk being felt for generations to come.
In 2011, after decades of civil war and the loss of more than 2 million lives, Sudan broke up with South Sudan, becoming the world's newest nation. Now, with the 2023 civil war still raging and neither side being able to control large swathes of territory, it is unclear whether either entity will be able to govern Sudan. So the threat of a partition in Sudan is back. Will Sudan break up again?
We're calling the show Vantage. We hope you like what we put together for you. Touted as the minimum defense from that video. India's neighbors were the first to send the special edition of Vantage live from the White House throughout this week. Yes, Hindu Mandir in we're on our way to Tel Aviv. Measure, but it's also the perfect way to drive.
I don't think that
Prime Minister of Bhutan, Sherin Tagwe. Welcome to
60% of the world's
office. Prime Minister Modi did the iron.
We were actually
How are you doing? How do you like? It's been 1 year since that meeting. Iron bars separate you from the outside. Out the vote effort. Trump had, it says, and at $4.3 trillion. 300 billion by 2030. That's what we need to tackle climate change.